Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Durhadi Ibnu, and right now I will present my applied linguistic project too. So let's start. Question 1, Problems 1. Mr. Thompson is a linguist studying the use of language in news reporting. He is particularly interested in how language can convey bias, shape public opinion, and influence the perception of news events. Mr. Thompson analyzes articles from various news outlets covering the same events to identify linguistic patterns that may indicate bias. He also considers the impact of these linguistic choices on the audience's understanding and interpretation of the news. Question: what linguistic features should Mr. Thompson focus on to identify bias in news reporting? Discuss at least three features and explain how they can contribute to biased reporting. The answer: to identify bias in news reporting, Mr. Thompson should focus on several key linguistic features. Here are three important ones, along with the explanations of how they can contribute to bias reporting. 1. Lexical choices. Lexical choices refer to the specific words and phrase used in reporting. The selection of words can significantly influence the tone and perceived impartiality of an article. Here's how lexical choices can indicate bias. First, euphemisms and dysphemisms. Euphemisms can downplay negative aspects as collateral damage instead of civilian casualties, while dysphemism can amplify negative aspects like terrorists instead of militants. Second, adjectives and adverbs. Descriptive words can subtly influence opinions. For example, brave soldiers versus reckless soldiers. Third, loaded language. Words with strong positive or negative connotations can convey bias. For instance, describing a protest as a riot versus a demonstration can shape readers' perception differently. Number two, synthetic structures. The way sentences are structured can also reflect bias. Certain synthetic choices can foreground or background information, affect the clarity of statements, and influence the reader's perception. First, passive versus active voice. Passive contractions can obscure responsibility, like mistakes were made versus the government made mistakes. Second, nominalization, turning action into nouns can obscure the agents responsible for actions, like there was an increase in prices versus companies' increased price. Third, clause structure and placement. The main clause of a sentence usually carries more weight than a subordinate clause. For example, although the policy is unpopular, it is necessary. Foregrounds the necessity of the policy, while the policy is necessary. Although it is unpopular, foregrounds its unpopularity. Third, framing and agenda setting. Framing involves presenting information in a way that emphasizes certain aspects over others, shaping the audience interpretation. First headline and lead sentence. The headline and the first few sentences often frame the entire story. They can highlight specific aspects, thereby influencing readers' initial perceptions. Second, selection and omission of information. What is included or omitted from a story can indicate bias. Highlighting particular facts while ignoring others can create a skewed narrative. Third, quotations and attributions. The choice of whom to quote, how to attribute statements, and the placement of quotes can influence the perceived credibility and weight of different viewpoints. Question 2. Problems 2. Imagine you are a language planner working for the government of a country with a diverse linguistic landscape. The country has several indigenous languages spoken by different ethnicity groups, as well as a dominant national language used for official purposes. Your task is to develop a language policy that promotes linguistic diversity while ensuring effective communication and national unity. The question: how can be the government promote the use and preservation of indigenous language through education? The answer: to promote the use and preservation of indigenous language through education, the government can implement a comprehensive language policy that incorporates the following strategies. First, bilingual and multilingual education programs. Implementing bilingual and multilingual education programs can help preserve indigenous language while ensuring students are proficient in the national language. The key actions including early childhood education, introduce indigenous language in early childhood education to ensure children learn this language from a young age. Next, bilingual curriculum. Develop a curriculum that includes both the national language and indigenous language. Subjects can be taught in both languages, gradually increasing the use of the national language as students progress. Last is language immersion programs. Create immersion programs where indigenous languages are the primary medium of instruction for certain subjects or periods, helping students achieve fluency. 2. Teacher training and resources. Providing adequate training and resources for teachers is crucial for the successful implementation of bilingual and multilingual education programs. This includes training indigenous language teachers, is develop specialized training programs for teachers to become proficient in indigenous language and effective in teaching them. Next, creating teaching materials is produce textbooks, educational materials, and digital resources in indigenous language to support teaching and learning. Next is professional development. Is offer continuous professional development opportunities for teachers to stay updated on best practice in bilingual education and language preservation. Third, community involvement and support. Engaging communities in education process ensures the cultural relevance and acceptance of language policy. This step including cultural integration is incorporate indigenous cultures and traditions into the school curriculum to create a culturally responsive educational environment. Next, parent and community programs. Establish programs to involve parents and community members in the education process, such as language classes, cultural events, and literacy programs in indigenous language. Next is collaboration with indigenous groups. Is work closely with indigenous communities and leaders to ensure language policies align with their needs and aspirations. Fourth, institutional and policy support. Strong institutional and policy support is necessary to sustain the efforts to promote and preserve indigenous language. This can be achieved by legislative measures, is an enact laws that recognize and protect indigenous language as part of the national heritage, ensuring their use in education and public life. Next is funding and resources. Allocate sufficient funding and resources to support the development and implementation of bilingual and multilingual education programs. Next, research and documentation. It supports research on indigenous language and create comprehensive documentation, including dictionaries, grammars, and language archive to aid in their preservation and revitalization. Next, fifth, technological integration. Leveraging technology can enhance the reach and effectiveness of language preservation efforts. This includes digital platforms and apps. There is developed digital platforms and mobile applications that provide access to educational content in indigenous language, including interactive lessons and language learning tools. Next, online resources is create online repositories of indigenous language resources, such as ebooks, audio recordings, and video content to support both formal and informal learning. Next is media and broadcasting. Media and broadcasting is promote the use of indigenous language in media, including radio, television, and social media, to increase their visibility and usage in everyday life. By implementing these strategies, the government can promote the use and preservation of indigenous language through education, fostering linguistic diversity while ensuring effective communication and national unity. So that's all from my presentation for Applied Linguistic Project 2. Thank you for watching my video.